Welcome back to the Kids to Love podcast, and I'm so excited to have one of my favorite people here today. He came in a little bit ago and he hugged me, and listen, he kind of was going to give me a half-arm hug. I'm like, no, sir.
The side
no,
hug.
sir.
Yeah.
Come in. So this is David Petty, and for those of you who have, I guess, really followed the Kids to Love journey over the past 22 years, you've been a big part of that, and certainly has impacted my life with his work ethic, his cycle breaker mentality, cultural disruptor. I'm just going to put all those great terms on you. But let's start at the beginning of kind of your story, and then we'll get to what David is doing now, which here's a teaser. I love the full circleness about how God is using you. But let's talk about the beginning of your journey.
Yeah. First, thank you for having me on here. You could have had anybody on here, but you chose to have me.
No. Listen, you go always to the top of the list, and you should know that by now.
Yeah, but no. So my story, it kind of started, and a lot of this I didn't know until I was 22, right? So I knew this after the fact. But my brother, I have a twin brother, and so our journey kind of started basically at birth, right? Some of the birth documents that I got, basically the state was like, okay, they're going to enter into foster care. So when I was 22 and found those documents, it was because my mom had some mental health issues and stuff. But again, so we were destined for foster care from a very early age. And so we got placed into an adoptive home in North Alabama. So we were born in Birmingham and then placed in North Alabama. And so for 15 years, there was stability in a sense. They adopted us. That was mom and dad. And those were the only people that we called mom and dad, right? Those were our family. And over time, they adopted other kids in the home. So at one point, it was like 11 or 12 of us. And, there was some good and there was some bad there because it's, we grew up on a farm. So it was like a hard way of living. And over time, there was some abuse, physical, mental abuse. But for me, like, it was kind of normalized. Like, I didn't know any better. And some of my adopted brothers and their story as well. But unfortunately, when I was 15, it kind of came to light some of the things that was happening at the home. And I remember, I was at football practice, and I remember seeing, some police cars go by. And my cousin, he was a knucklehead. I remember making a joke, like, hey, brother, they're coming for you. Little did I know they were coming for me. And it was like a DHR worker.
Oh, wow.
And so at that time, we knew something bad was going on. And sure enough, they were like, hey, some stuff is going on. Social workers are here. You got to pack a bag. It's kind of funny. You see the movies where they give a kid a black garbage bag. Yeah, I had that, and I packed 2 weeks of clothes, which at that time I didn't have really nice clothes, but I got the best I had. And so at 15, started my journey back into the system. So inner foster care, was adopted for 15 years, then back in the system. So from 15 to when I aged out, I bounced around from 6 to 7 different foster homes. But God had his hand on us, and that every single foster home that me and my brothers were in, they were godly families, came to know Christ for real when I was 16. And a lot of what I've learned in those different foster homes from those godly parents who were like, yes, I'm going to answer the call and take in these kids who I don't know, has shaped and molded me into who I am today. And I thank God for that. So foster care and the bouncing around, that was hard, but yet it takes really special people to foster. And I still reach out to them and thank them ad nauseum. They were like, David, we get it, but I never want to be lost on them for what they did and how they stewarded my brother and I to be great men. And so,
well, and let me interject right there. I think it's very important to make this point. A lot of times, kids in foster care get a bad rap because of behaviors, and you guys were great kids.
Yeah.
I mean, very well behaved. How long have we known each other? I mean, it's been
2008.
Yeah, so do
2009.
that math. So 18 years, 18 years that we've been in contact with each other. And there has never been a time that I have not been always proud of how y'all act and react even in the most adverse situations. And so I really think it's important that we stop and make the point, because a lot of times people are scared not to foster because they think that they're bad kids. And don't get me wrong. I mean, all kids have the potential to have behaviors. We know that. And because trauma manifested behaviors, but for you guys, you were good kids, and still you were victims of the system because of just the way the system is designed. I mean, you said, six,
Yeah.
7 homes. I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of the norm for foster care.
And I'm glad you interjected there, because for those of you listening, it wasn't because Howard and I were bad kids.
No, they're
Right?
not.
We were knuckleheads, but like you said, it's a product of the system. I think they were just like, hey, we just need you to, and again, as teenagers, sometimes it's just like, we got to have you until you at least age out, right?
Right.
And essentially that's what happened, right? Can you keep them for 2 months, or can you keep them
Yeah.
for, a weekend? And so, yeah, and we knew that. Like, we were like, we're not bad kids. And like you said, there's so many kids in care now who are unfortunately in residential facilities or group homes or foster homes just because there's not enough foster homes, or waiting to step down to kinship care. Like, all those things is just a product of the system. And unfortunately, sometimes, parents make bad decisions, or sometimes it trickles down from generation to generation, and you can't break that cycle. And sometimes the kids get caught up into that. And so, yeah, it was just, we were good kids. Sometimes I didn't even unpack my garbage bag. And one time a foster mom was like, you can use these dressers. I was like, nah, it's easier to get and navigate out of here.
Trust but verify. And then and a lot of these homes, you guys were able to stay together,
Mm-hmm.
which is so important for kids in care, to stay together with those siblings. So for you being older teens and staying together, that's also a testament to the foster families that stepped up to take care of y'all, to keep you together. I mean, there's a lot of points in this that I think we just kind of get used to because we work with the system every day. But
Yeah.
keeping siblings together, especially these older I mean, y'all aren't identical twins, but they're twin brothers. Trust
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
and all the magic that comes with that. But
Yeah.
being able to stay together really helped that bond with the two of you stay intact.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, on the hard days and the long nights, just looking over there, knowing I had him with me. And so, we played sports, and we really had some people step up and show, like, whether it was the Lord leading them or just naturally having a heart for foster kids. We were living in a foster home, but still going to school out of county. And we got a call from a social worker saying, at a track meet, it was like, they're going to be starting at Buckhorn on Monday. And there was track coach, track parents, and they were like, no, we're not letting these kids. And we had a teacher literally drive all the way for like 2 months, for like 45 minutes there and back, just to make sure we got to school on time so we didn't have to transfer schools.
Because when you're in high school and you are, you guys are very athletic and you're involved in track and football, when everything else in your life is crumbling, you need that team, you need your teammates, you need your coach,
Yeah.
and to keep and you know how it is. It's like if you switch schools, sometimes you have to sit out. So for no reason of your own and no fault of your own, that would have derailed your high school athletic career, which was such an important part
Yeah.
of stability. And so kudos to that teacher for
Yeah.
stepping up and saying, not on my watch.
Yeah.
It's going to mean that I'm, hour and a half, 2 hours a day. But man, for 2 months, we could do that. That's huge that someone stepped up to do that for you guys. That's what we need more of.
Yeah, and the coach knew us like since kindergarten, and so it wasn't like oh no, these are athletes, we want them.
Right.
It was more like, no, we've seen you grow up, and they probably kind of knew some of the things that we had went through, but like you said, they stepped up and was like, no, I can inconvenience myself, and they had kids of their own, and so by God's grace, we ultimately ended up in another foster home in that same school jurisdiction. But things like that stick with me, even now as a soon-to-be 34-year-old, of what people did to stick up for us and my brother. So praise God for them.
Yeah. So 2008, kind of talk about how we got connected and the Kids to Love part of your journey.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier this week. I was working, and Howard was like running. He was like, "Hey, you got to go to this scholarship luncheon. I don't know, but here's some clothes, change." Had no idea, and so I literally threw on some clothes, went to the scholarship luncheon. Kids to Love. I hadn't really heard of you, and that was the journey. And I think just the name Kids to Love, I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then just kind of how our relationship has blossomed over the years of you investing into me, like giving me scholarships. And that really kind of propelled me into college thinking like, hey, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And even on the long nights of college, I was thinking, well, I didn't want to go to class. Like, no, there's people rooting for me. And I didn't want to let you down. And this is not hyperbole. There was me like, hey, I can't let Lee down. I can't let, John and Sandra, my folks, down. And so, yeah, Kids Love, how we got connected was really one of the pivotal moments of my life of like, there's people counting on me and think that I can go places. Like, do I really deserve this scholarship money? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that was just the beginning of just my trajectory of overcoming the systemic issues and statistics of kids in foster care and post-secondary education. And here I am now.
So I remember David got his bachelor's of social work at the University of North Alabama, UNA, Roar Lions.
Roar Lions.
And you graduated in December. And Julie on our team, she and I, we had been, of course, December's the middle of Christmas of our, which is a massive undertaking that we do. And so we had been up literally all night long. And I'm like, I've got to leave the warehouse by this time. Because there was no way I was not going to be at your graduation. Because I'm like, I'm going to be there rooting for you because you had put so much work in. And I remember Jeff drove us to Florence so I could get some sleep. And just you walking across the stage, knowing all the hardships that you had overcome, but more than anything, you had put the work in. You had earned that. And college is hard. College is hard, period. But then you add in all the additional that our kids in care, all the baggage that comes with them. So, I mean, from your birth family, were you the first one to get your college degree?
No. So what I've learned, when I was older, like 22 and on, so some of my biological family, they took education very seriously. So they actually went to college, got even some master's degrees too.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, I was like, okay, it's kind of nice. But, still just not thinking that was for me. Just knowing what you've heard, as a foster kid growing up. And I even had some teachers in school kind of scoff. I remember my senior year, it was getting close to graduation. I was like, oh, yeah, college. I saw the look on her face, like, freshman, sophomore, junior year. I was like, I'm going to show her.
Hey, you said that look. That's why I'm getting up and going to class, clocking you.
Yeah, and again, that's motivation, right? I think, and you've helped so many other foster kids, college and beyond. There were people who unintentionally motivated us, right? And again, for whatever reason, again, that's nothing against them. But, yeah, there was a lot of motivators to get up, go to class, and then also to do it so other foster kids that come after you can say, hey, I can do it. And that's, the line of work I do now. It's all about doing my part to help make the system a better place. So foster kids, and then keeping kids out of care. That's another thing, right? So prevention work, like what are we doing to keep kids from getting into foster care in the first place? But that's another topic for another day. So
David, I was telling him before we started recording that, we know the statistics of kids in foster care and education. Less than 50% graduate high school. Of the 50%, less than 20% will go to college. Of the 20%, less than 10% will graduate college. And that's really with a bachelor's degree, associate's degree. You were our first Kids to Love scholar to graduate with a master's degree.
Okay.
And what I love about that is there were no statistics on the board to break with that one because it had never even, in my research, it hadn't been a thing. And so, and he'll be the first to tell you he's a big Auburn fan,
Yeah.
but went to Alabama because you were smart enough to know I need to get this master's, and he says he still doesn't say Roll Tide, but anyway, we were.
Yeah.
But we were in Tuscaloosa.
You were. Yeah.
Gosh, I guess it was about a year and a half. Was it like a year master's
It was like
program?
advanced standings. It was like a year and a half. Yeah.
So I remember the May of that year, we were in Tuscaloosa when you got your master's, and I mean, again, just so proud of you because not only are you overcoming, you're just shattering all the strongholds and that narrative that people put on kids coming out of care. It was a great day. It was a great day.
In the moment, I wasn't thinking like that. It was kind of just like, really, like, okay, well, in social work, you have to have a master's degree. So it was kind of like the formalities of it all. But looking back now, just kind of hearing you share that, like, yeah, like I'm paving a new road.
Absolutely.
For those coming after me. And of course, at 21, 22, you're not thinking that, right? But and looking back, like I was really fortunate, right? Just, the ETV vouchers for kids in foster care, like it's doable, but sometimes it's once a kid turns 18, they're just like, no, I'm ready just to, do my own thing, whether that's working or what have you. But for me, like I knew to make it in this world, as a young black man too, like education, right? And taking those opportunities that are afforded to foster kids through funding and housing and all that stuff. I made the most of it by God's grace. And now I'm in a career where, doing work to help better the lives of young people.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what you're doing now, because I love the fact that your education is in social work and now you're the lifeline and the support for so many young people that exactly the shoes that they're walking in.
Yeah, so I work for Youth Villages. I've been working there since 2018. And so I do corporate work now, but before I was working with young people aging out of foster care. And I really enjoyed that, right? Direct care, working with young people. And I wouldn't necessarily just be forthright with just like, hey, I was in care. Normally it would have to be like a natural conversation with the young person. And I remember so many conversations where, I have a young kid like, oh, you don't know, emotionally heightened. Well, you don't know what it's like. Let's have a conversation real quick. Let me tell you. And there's a paradigm shift, and they look at you differently. And I had this one young man who's my favorite, and it was during COVID. He was doing great, and he had to leave his dorm and go back to a really bad environment. And so it was some gang involvement. It wasn't a good area. And he was on a great trajectory. And he got back into some old habits and had witnessed one of his friends get murdered due to gang violence. And he retaliated and, shot whoever. And the guy lived, but obviously he fled to another state for a little bit. And I remember getting a text from him saying, like, hey, I'm sorry I let you down. I'm going to turn myself in. I went to go spend my last Thanksgiving with my grandmother. And I still have, it was an email, not a text, where he was like, I'm sorry I let you down. He goes, I remember those moments when you would come to my dorm room and we would have our session and kids would say, like, who is that man that keeps coming to meet with you? He was like, I was so embarrassed to say this was like my counselor. I told them that you were my dad because of just like the way you carried yourself. And so even in moments like that, it was a sad ending because, ultimately he got, arrested and is doing time. But those moments of like making an impact in young people's lives. And they remember those conversations of just like getting a driver's license or talking about an exam and all of that. So I really enjoyed taking what I had learned and using my experiences to kind of help shape young people in care and ultimately transitioning into life after care. And so now I do more business development and policy planning. So ultimately, if you do your job good enough, you get promoted.
And you get you more jobs.
Yeah, so I got promoted. So now I do more of, not direct care, which I kind of miss working with young people, but now my approach is like, what can I do from like the macro level to inform policy makers' decisions on the best practices and interventions for young people in care. And so it's rather nuanced, but it's a new outlook on like how to affect the system.
So now that you have got perspective of been there, lived that, and now you have the education and the training and the experience with the job, and you're actually able to effectively influence how things are done. I mean, what are the top things that we have to do better for those of us in child welfare for this next generation? Because the reality is foster care is necessary because of safety for kids. We've got to have foster care.
Yeah.
Reunification, while is always the goal, is not always an option. So how do we do it better?
I think, like you said, obviously you would like to have more foster homes, right? I think, a Home for Every Child initiative. So that's another big thing. But I think more practically, like from state to state, like how are we looking at prevention programs? I think, so with my career, we have a model that is tailored towards preventing young people from coming into care. And so I think looking at prevention, right? Because you can save a lot of money. Well, from a state's perspective, you save a lot of money if you invest in, and again, some of these interventions, evidence-based models, they're costly. But yet look at the return on investment if these kids don't come into care. So I think just investing in prevention programs that are evidence-based that can help with behavior modification, meeting with people who care, who listen. I think, part of my job now is going to Montgomery sometimes and just meeting with different legislators, and sometimes like it clicks. They're like, wow, like tell me more about this. And again, like the main goal is hopefully for all of us, right? Like what can we do to affect systemic change to kind of make our state better, to better serve the young people in care. So just doing your part, just being inquisitive, asking the right questions, getting in front of the right people, and then lived expert voice, using lived experience, right? So like obviously professionals who have the acumen to talk to people about, like using these big fancy words, but sometimes it's like, here's a young person who lived this. And that moves the needle a lot more than somebody who is some big CEO of a company saying this is why we do great work. It's helpful, but lived voice really moves the needle.
What would you tell 15-year-old David when you go back and you're on the football field and you see the cops coming and your life is about to be disrupted? What would you tell him in that moment?
Oh, gosh. The best is yet to come. It's kind of counterintuitive because I was kind of scared. It was a lot of unknown. And like my whole world for the past 15 years was about to get flipped upside down. But the Lord really used that for the better, right? I was afforded opportunities to do things and go places that I never really had thought. And so I think looking back at 15-year-old David, just saying like, endure, persevere, push through, and to not always look at the negative things in a bad light. Because in Scripture, we see how God uses unfortunate circumstances for our good and His glory, right? And so I've seen that now, but 15, 16, 17, I wasn't thinking about that. I was like, am I still going to play football? Like, am I still going to be at my same high school? So just persevere, endure, and just have a positive outlook. So.
And that's also great advice for others that are
for sure,
in that journey. Awesome. I'm just so proud of you.
Thank
and
you.
I'm so glad that our schedules finally connected where we were able to make it happen.
Yeah, I was like, I got to get on the podcast. And again, our schedule's kind of...
Look at us. We're a destination now.
Right.
No,
and so,
great.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to make this happen.
Well, I'm glad your schedule allowed it, trying to, because, now that you live in Tennessee, even though you're still in the area from time to
Quite
time.
a bit,
Just making sure that it worked. Keep up the good work. I can't wait to see how you just continue to change the world, and I'm just so proud of you.
I'll try my best. Thank you.
Love you.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
All right. And that's it on this podcast. We're gonna go before we cry. But you can watch all of our archive podcasts at kidstolove.org. David Petty,
Thank you.
Love you, mean it.
See you guys.